Thank you.
Do you have the clicker on?
I do.
Okay, perfect.
Hello. So I'll apologize right off the bat because the last 9 years I've spoke to mainly elementary schools. So if I start getting real excited, my apologies. So we just wanted to, we heard it's going to be Keynote. So I just kind of wanted to inspire the students in here and just explain the science of never giving up. So it does say there's two of us. We started at the Marine Mammal Training Center, met there, and basically since then we became good friends and started sea turtle recovery. But before that, I graduated from Coastal Carolina University doing bottlenose dolphin research there. From there I went on to work with NOAA and U.S. Fish and Wildlife doing bottlenose dolphin research. We did live captures right here off of Cape May. And from there, I went, there's a long history, I apologize. I worked at Hammock Beach State Park doing sea turtle nesting and sea turtle research before working at the Marine Mammal Training Center doing research and strandings, saving seals mainly there. And Bill, he'll tell you his.
I grew up in South Jersey. I went to Stockton College. I did the seal study there when I was in college, doing diet studies, otolith identification, things like that. I worked briefly at Camden Aquarium as a seal trainer with their seal program before transitioning to the Marine Mammal Training Center. And that's when we saw the need for sea turtle rehab here in New Jersey. So that's when we decided to create Sea Turtle Recovery.
Okay, next. So as far as the science of giving up, we just want to inspire, you hear all the time now, climate change isn't going to change. It's going to keep getting worse. You hear all the research that says, this is on the decline. This is, the plastics are getting worse. Microplastics are getting worse. You hear about the political climate, the economy's, in crisis, all of this, and you can get really down. And what I want to say is that instead of getting down, the people in this room more than anybody should be lifted up because we're the answer. We're the solution. It's the scientists, it's the research, it's the people who think of the new ideas that are going to give us hope for our future. And so you can't think of hope without thinking of Thomas Edison because he failed approximately 10,000 times before inventing the light bulb. He actually has research and study after study, there's paperwork after paperwork showing how many times he failed, how off base he was so many times. And you just wonder how he went from, the 5,000th time, he's like, it didn't work, to the 10,000th. And that being said, next, Bill. Every picture of his wife looks like this. So I'm not sure she was the inspiration behind it, just saying. But she may have invented her own thing, which was saying, don't get any bright ideas. Just thinking. But either way, he did go on to invent the light bulb, and look how it changed all our lives. Next. So when you are told there is no hope, it can't be done, or don't get any bright ideas, become the scientist that proves them all wrong. And that's what we're kind of here to say today. So this isn't an overall number of endangered species, but the number of threatened species and endangered species is obviously on the rise. This chart shows just some of the indications of what's going on with our populations of animals, birds, insects, and so on. So again, when Bill and I looked at this, we were at the Marine Mammal Training Center. Here we had sea turtle stranding, and all species of sea turtles are threatened or endangered. And we were pulling in these sea turtles and taking them in, and then we'd have U.S. Fish and Wildlife and NOAA said, you have pretty much 45 days to stabilize them. Obviously, we'll make exceptions, but 45 days, you want to stabilize them or get them to a long-term care sea turtle hospital. And, when we were working there, there'd be sea turtles that come in with prop cuts across them. There'd be fishing hooks down their throat, all kinds of horrible injuries and illness. And to stabilize something that needs surgeries and massive care, you were pretty much, already on a losing battle. And here again, they're in endangered, they're threatened. And we were, like, how much can you stabilize them? So then we would call other facilities, and usually North Carolina was our saving grace. They would say, we can take your animal. And then we'd drive overnight through the night to try to get to Carolina. And so many times during those years, I believe it was over 13 years I worked there, so many times you'd come back home and you'd be like, you'd call in a couple days and you'd be like, how's our sea turtle? How's he doing? And they'd be like, sorry, Brandi, he didn't make it. It's instant for me because I see those animals. So that being said, over time, it just became like, we have to do something. There has to be something different here. And so against all odds, we decided to start a sea turtle hospital, Bill and I. Go ahead. And so, of course, you get the naysayers, perhaps someone that told me to don't get any bright ideas. But we were told so many times, there's no way you can start a nonprofit in today's economy, especially for aquatic life. You're talking about water quality systems, ozones. You're talking about huge tanks, massive efforts. Sea turtles can take years of rehabilitation. I'm sorry, unless you know a billionaire, you're not going to make it. And I don't know any, by the way. And we are also told, how can two people start a nonprofit? You don't know a billionaire. So many times we were told this over and over. And we didn't listen because we listened to the voices of those sea turtles that didn't make it. Woo! Instantly gets me. But that's what we listened to instead. And so that being said, this is our hospital. And what happened was we had a great veterinarian that said he would work with us. He said he'd be there for us. He said, I'll be on call. I can't obviously be your permanent vet, your main, but I'll be on call 24 hours if you guys need me. You guys be my hands and my eyes and tell me what we need. You'll be the ones resuscitating them. If they, have a blood clot or anything, you'll be the ones there. But I'll guide you through it, and I'll be there as soon as I can type situation. So that being said, he also believed in us so much. He talked to the Turtleback Zoo, and their veterinarian at the time said, Turtleback Zoo needs a conservation effort, but they don't want to pay for it. And so they're like, but they'll build you the facility. And then they'll say you're on your own. And it'd be a great thing for them. They would support you as much as they can. But with one sea turtle needing over $3,000 to rehab, they just couldn't afford that kind of effort. And so that being said, we're like, let's do it. We'll become that nonprofit and we'll start our hospital. So they believed in us, and with the help of volunteers and everyone who supported us, this is our facility today. We're up in West Orange. But we cover the whole state of New Jersey. So if a sea turtle strands right now, you'll see Bill leave me and me cry a little more. And we're on call right now, so one of us might answer the phone. But it literally is every day we could get a call, and any day we could go and respond to a sea turtle and bring it back to our facility. The Great Marine Mammal Stranding Center does sometimes pick up the sea turtles for us and get them to us as well. And so shout out to them as well. But this is our hospital. And next. So the other thing we were told after building our beautiful aquatic life center, we had to get NOAA and U.S. Fish and Wildlife's approval. And NOAA, of course, said, you have, the basics, how to stabilize these sea turtles. We support your effort. Sea turtles hospitals are needed. There's so many sea turtles that are stranding. Oil spills are happening more and more, and obviously just natural disasters, UMEs. We would love to support you, but please go to all these different hospitals. Make sure you know what you're doing. So we did. So we went to Baltimore, Virginia, Massachusetts. I'd hate to miss anybody, but so we traveled all along, and we basically, it was one of those situations where you walk in and they're like, let's see if you know what you're doing, right? And so it was a little nerve-wracking because you're just like, oh boy, I'm drawing blood in front of this person that's done it 10,000 times. Don't mess up. But that being said, yeah, they worked with us, and they told NOAA and U.S. Fish and Wildlife we were ready. They came to the facility, and then they drilled us some more, asking us all the questions. And we get through with all that, and we have our setup, and we know how to save a sea turtle, right? And then I'll never forget it. We were sitting there with our veterinarian and the two of us, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife lady at the time, she goes, you know, you guys know your stuff, but I don't see two people doing this. She goes, you guys plan to be the fundraising committee. You plan to be the education coordinators. You plan to be the ones taking care of these sea turtles 24 hours a day. You plan to be the water quality, the internet, the Facebook, the social media. You plan it all. And I still remember looking at her, and it was a little emotional. I'm always emotional, can you tell? So she didn't know that, though. So, of course, I start crying, and I go, you're asking me how I breathe. I'm like, you're asking me how I do what I've already always done and in my head to do. So when you know you're meant for something, you just do it. And after she started crying, then it works every time. After she started crying, we got the permits to do it. So that's how you get an audience. So next. So that being said, as you heard, we've saved 155 sick and injured sea turtles that have now been released back into the wild. And not to say anymore, but Bill will actually be going to sleep tomorrow after this and sleeping all day because he'll be driving through the night. And on Monday, releasing in North Carolina, water temperatures are still too cold off the coast here. And so we'll be releasing 2 more sea turtles. So the numbers keep going. Thank you. So that 155 will soon be 157. And right now we have 15 sea turtles in our care. Some have impact traumas. We've had sea turtles, all kinds of different injuries, illnesses. We'll show you some of them. I do just want to side note because it's our passion, as you can tell. So we have over a 90% success rate. And that being said, though, when it comes to balloons, we have a 0% success rate. So when they've swallowed a balloon, it is very hard to save them. It is very hard for them to recover from it. So we have to throw out there, if you guys want to make something your mission on the side, please make it that, balloons just are outlawed from New Jersey. So that's my little side note. But we can make that happen. That is not something the world needs. They do not need balloons. And I'm speaking, to the choir, so to speak. And you're in church pews, so. But that being said, we can make an effort and we can make a difference. And that's a huge way to do it right off the bat. Next. So that being said, it's not about Bill and I. We're just 2 people that love sea turtles. It's as simple as that. It's really these sea turtles. When I first worked at Marine Mammal Training Center, of course, I worked with the seals, did some dolphin rehab and things like that. But the seals had so much personality. And I was just like, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to leave them. And because, sea turtles, how much personality do they have? I couldn't have been more wrong. Every single sea turtle, I do adoptions for a lot of our sea turtles. And I write their story and their personalities. And everybody's like, do you just make that up? Because aren't they like fish? Aren't you like fish number 1? Likes to play. No. I'm like, believe it or not, they have more personality than the seals. Some are feisty, some just the amazing things these animals do on a daily basis. When we're giving them injections, so we give them shots, antibiotics about every 5 days, depending on the needs. And it's so funny, we had one that anytime you come at it with a needle, it'd squint and it'd start shaking. It broke your heart. You'd be like, I'm a monster. And then you'd have the one that would grab the towel and, toss it around and things. And so that being said, they're remarkable. You could do so many studies just on their different feeding strategies too, even in a rehab facility. The one we just released, he was named Goldfinger. They named him after, the thief in what movie is it? 7. 007. But that being said, he figured out that if he tried to steal food, so we throw our food in, and we try to throw it 2 feet in front of the sea turtle we're aiming at. All the food's weighed into 0.2 pieces. We know how much each turtle should make And so we're tallying that. So they're all numbered. So number 6 got a 0.2 fish, number 6 got a 0.2 squid, so on and so forth, and you're throwing them all till they get their full diet. Goldfinger would always get double the diet. We'd always have to lay out more food. And they'll do that, you know, if you throw too far or something, it's always the only job you'll ever have that you get points for throwing food properly, right? So you're throwing the food, but Goldfinger figured out a strategy, and this is the first year I've ever seen it, 9 years. You know, usually they'll steal from each other. If you're chewing too long on the squid, they'll grab it out of each other's face, and then they'll start pecking at each other, like, you just stole my food. Goldfinger figured that out pretty quickly. So what he would do, and I wish I could have caught it on video, but he is too stealth even for me, he would wait till a sea turtle was holding the fish and chewing on it and swimming forward. He would go underneath that sea turtle and he would grab the tentacle of the squid and then stop in mid-water. And so the top sea turtle would just keep swimming and chewing, and it would slowly pull out of his mouth, and he would swallow it down. And the other turtle, it was so sad because they'd be like, it was, and he'd like, I swore I was eating something. And then there would be Goldfinger just stopped and like chewing away. And they just, every single one, of course, I could go through 155. Don't worry, I won't. But that being said, their intelligence, the way they feed, the way they adapt, just in that short time, we have to be very careful not to make them anything but wild. And these are some of our favorite stories, though. Go ahead. So this was Ducky, and the majority of sea turtles we get here in New Jersey that strand are called what's called cold stun. And what happens is when they fail to migrate before water temperatures get too cold, whether that's because they have an injury or a precondition or sickness, or they just get confused, they get what's called cold stunning. What happens is they'll go into the bays to try to stay warm. As the Labrador current, the cold water current pushes down, they should have followed the Gulf Stream to warmer waters. If they failed to, they're in our back bays, and they're trying to stay warm. As the bay gets cold, there's nothing they can do, and they start to strand. Now, they can't hibernate like other types of turtles, and so they just try to shut their system down to try to stay alive. It's fascinating that they can shut down all their organ systems, but their brain and their heart. And normal heart rate for a sea turtle is about 30 beats a minute. But when they're cold stunned, it can be 1 beat an hour, and they can still be alive. So it's crazy. Of course, you know I'm crazy now, so imagine me in the winter. So imagine we get these calls, and people are like, I think this turtle might be alive. I'm bringing it to you. And I scream at them, of course, because I'm like, roll down your window. And they're like, I'm sorry, what? I have a turtle. And I'm like, roll down your window. Roll down your window. And the reason is because you see a sea turtle on the beach, you want to put it in a towel and warm it right up, crank your heat in your car to, 80 degrees. And that's the last thing you want to do, because it'll actually kill my sea turtle. It warms them up, and they could go into shock real easy. And so people are screamed at to roll down their windows and to keep it cold, because we have to warm them no more than 5 degrees a day. Any more than that, again, they can have organ damage and things like that. But that being said, to try to explain it to you a little more, when Ducky first came in, we had a volunteer bring it in, and they go, I swear, Ducky was moving, and then just the last 3 minutes, there was some activity, like it was possibly seizuring, and then nothing. I don't think he's alive anymore. Ugh. And so we checked, no heart rate, no activity levels at all. There was nothing happening with Ducky, but we heard 3 minutes ago he's alive, so it's game on, right? So we're calling Dr. Pollock, our amazing veterinarian, and he's telling us everything to give. You see in the neck picture, that's where we put in all the medications and stuff. There's a blood vessel right in the neck that you can go in, and so we were administering atropine and things to try to bring the heart back, and nothing happened for 7 minutes. Doc said do another dose of different drugs, and so we're doing it. And then finally, 15 minutes in, we got a faint heartbeat. And so, but its fight is still not over. Our volunteer that brought the turtle in was taking a few pictures, and so you can see the ambu bag. We'll put that down the trachea and try to get our sea turtles to breathe. Sea turtles are what's called voluntary breathers. You're an involuntary breather. What does that mean? Well, when you go to sleep, you breathe. You don't have to tell yourself to breathe every time. Thank goodness. But that being said, a sea turtle does, right? A loggerhead sea turtle can hold their breath for up to 7 hours. So every time they come to the surface to take a big breath, they're telling themselves to breathe. Their brain has to say, it is time to take a breath. So even though we got Ducky's heartbeat, it was 15 minutes. How long had he been in distress? Was it a blood clot? What was going on? So we're giving Ducky air, but it's his choice whether he comes back to us or not. He's still pretty much dead until he takes that breath. 20 minutes go by, 25 minutes, and we were both very upset. And it's like, how long, you know? How long until you realize he's decided it's time? So you keep going. And it was funny, Bill had just walked away to take a break and get a drink. And all of a sudden, Ducky started to shake. And this is why I could never be a doctor, because of my emotions, right? So I'm screaming, Bill, Bill! and Bill comes out, and I was like, he's moving! And Bill goes, take the trach tube out. He's trying to breathe. So I'm pulling it out. And these are a couple. So this was what he looked like when he came in. Again, our volunteer was taking this as we were getting the drugs ready with Doc Pollock. And then his very first and second breaths. So after 30 minutes of complete distress, he did come back to us. So they're just amazing. Ducky was released, healthy, did all the behaviors green sea turtle should. So next. So then there's Tammy, and Tammy was a 265-pound loggerhead. It's nothing like trial by fire. So this happened, I believe, our first year at having sea turtles. They're like, we got a call from the Coast Guard. Can you take an adult loggerhead? Sure, yeah, I think so, maybe. So that being said, we went and picked up Tammy with the United States Coast Guard. I went out on a boat. Yes, I threw up over the side several times, but I made sure the Coast Guard didn't see me. I feel sorry for whoever had to clean the side of the boat, but we're not talking about that. So that being said, it was very rough that day, and then they had to stop because they had engine malfunction. So we didn't get back to the Turtleback Zoo until about 3 in the morning. But Tammy had 38 pounds of mussels, mud, and barnacles on her back. She had complete biodiversity on her. There were different types of worms and everything growing on her. That's because they can hold their breath 7 hours, they can spend lengthy amounts of time on the bottom if they're sick to rest. So she was obviously a rock to the local community. She would lay down for longer, lengthy periods of time, and that allowed the mussels, mud, and barnacles to grow on her back. Again, if you imagine the weight of 38 pounds on you, and then you're trying to come up for breathing, a lot of times these sea turtles will float at the surface to preserve energy as well. And so that's what Tammy started to do, and that's when the Coast Guard found her. It took them, that being said, she was so determined, it took them over an hour, even in her condition, to get her. Every time they tried to throw a cargo net on her, she'd dive down and go on the other side of the boat and be like, we saw video. She really said that, y'all. I'm telling you. But that being said, after an hour, they finally got her. And so what had happened to Tammy was she ended up having 7 propeller cuts across her back. She was anemic, and it took over a year of rehab. But obviously, we didn't give up. She destroyed a lot of tank things that we were like, oh, good to know. You can rip that right off, can't you? But that being said, she taught us a lot of valuable lessons, and that's her going back into the water after a little over a year of rehabilitation. You can notice the satellite tag. We don't do a lot of those, but with her, we watched, and she was up and down the coast and just fine. So pretty, another amazing story for us. Good. And then lastly is, of course, Titan, and he was all over the news. His story went completely viral, and that's because they called him the world's toughest turtle. That's because when we got Titan in, we realized there were actually 3 different incidences that caused his stranding. And the first one was he was hit by a boat propeller. and it went through the rear flipper into the bones. And so that was his first injury. We know this based on necrotic tissue. So the amount of damage and the amount of necrosis that had happened showed just the time frame of which this happened. So that injury to the front flipper actually caused Titan to stay at the surface for lengthy periods of time. That leaves you vulnerable to sharks. And so then sadly, Titan lost his front flipper. I apologize if you're grossed out. Don't watch a lot of this. But you can see the radius and ulna there are actually out. To gore you out even more, because I am a scientist and I'm weird, it was crazy because as he would move his front flippers, those would move too. And so it looked like he was trying to grab you. It was really creepy. But that being said, our amazing veterinarian did determine that bone was dead, and he had to remove all that. We had to do stitches. We had to make sure there wasn't an infection. We used a lot of raw honey. That's a natural antiseptic that we use for things like this. Several antibiotics. Titan was with us for over a year as well. And you can see from the time he stranded to the time he is healthy. Go ahead, Bill. And also video. This is when he's stranded. And I told you that he had 3 incidences. So the first one was getting hit by the boat. The second one was his flipper being taken, and you can see the scar tissue and everything already starting to form on that. And then the third incident was actually fishermen calling and saying, there is a sea turtle actively being attacked by sharks. What should we do? And I said, how comfortable do you feel reaching in the water? Because that's me. And they said, don't worry, they went away. We have video, the sharks got spooked by a boat. And I'm like, oh, that's even better. So we did ask them to pull Titan, and they did. And so he not only defeated death with the propeller, but then again, when he lost his front flipper and somehow managed to get away, and then at least days later, based on, again, the science of it, he was being attacked again and survived one more time. So world's toughest turtle was Titan. And this is him right before release with his tag. You ask, can 3 flippered sea turtles make it in the wild? Absolutely. We had to put in different things in the tank, make sure he developed muscle tone and maneuverability, but he was finally able to get released, and all the data shows that he did the absolute perfect migratory patterns just like any other loggerhead sea turtle would. So
10 minutes.
10 left.
Yep.
So that being said, just when you think you got this, the world hits you again, and COVID happened. Now, what happened with COVID that affected us? Well, it's simple. The zoo closed that we were inside of, so funding dried up that way. And then all the little family grants and stuff, because we're not big enough for the big grants, corporations say, oh, you only have 5,000 followers? Yeah. Let us know when you have 100,000 followers. We'll get back to you. And so all the family foundations, everything, reverted their efforts, and they should have, of course, to helping the healthcare and the doctors and everything that was going on with that. So funding for our little sea turtle nonprofit pretty much dried up. And so you think, are we going to survive this? We couldn't have volunteers in, which are our lifeline. So it was basically Bill and I coming in, doing everything, ordering everything, trying to work it out with just the 2 of us without days off for the most part. And that being said, obviously we're still here. And then just when you think you got through the worst of it, we get the call in the middle of the night that said, this is the fire department and your building's on fire. So we were like, the Turtleback Zoo was calling us. What do you want us to do? We're like, we're on our way. We're coming. And when we got there, firefighters were in our building. The flames were, completely high. And Bill can show you one of the videos. This was the fire department trying to get to the back area where the fire was. We were so blessed in where the lightning hit our building that it was not, believe it or not, you can't see because of all the smoke, but our turtles are on that upper platform there. The little tanks were empty. Thank goodness it was during the summer months when we weren't so busy because cold stunning season had already happened. And that being said, we got there, and the fire department says we can hold off the fire, we can contain it if you want to get your sea turtles out. So that being said, this is us rushing around getting our sea turtles. This is not bad cameras. This is all smoke at the top of our building. And these are just some of the sea turtles. This was from another video we had of our fire. So this is us just getting 5 of our sea turtles that were still with us at the time out of the tanks. And so you notice we lift our sea turtles with a skimmer. We always say, you know, yes, they come up to breathe, but these guys were actually smart enough to know to stay down and stay away from the smoke. They took one big breath, and for the most part, none of them really resurfaced. We watched the videos, and they realized something was wrong, and they stayed under to protect themselves. So all of these sea turtles we were pulling up, but we always pull them up with a skimmer so they know we're coming, and they never aspirate water as we're pulling them up. So that's us kind of running and realizing we had to pick him up. That's our loggerhead sea turtle. He has exposed bones, so that's why you're seeing the coloration on his shell. And then I think there's one more, but so what happened next is we got all our sea turtles out. We gave them all exams. We had one that was crashing. We were able to get him back, excuse me. Pickles was the one that wasn't breathing well, but our amazing vet on call, on the phone with us, told us exactly what to do. Then we knew we couldn't go back in our building, so we called a facility in New York. There was a temporary care facility, and they had just gotten rid of all of their turtles, and we're like, can we borrow your facility? So for a month, I was in hotels taking care of the sea turtles in New York, and we managed to get our building back, get it semi back. I think we still have a few things broken and missing, but that being said, we're still here. Go ahead. So what is the science of never giving up? It's not about us. It really isn't. It's about the fact that when you know you're born for something, you do it. When you see something you can make an impact on, you do it. And that's all I'm here to say, is that stop listening to everybody telling you that the world is a terrible place. Like, it's not. It's just a place where we need to think of new ideas, and we need to come up with the solutions. So that being said, in October of 2025, due to global conservation efforts, the green sea turtle species was downlisted and is a species of least concern. And so to us, that's a sign that things are changing. It wasn't us that did that. It's not our small numbers of rehab patients, but what it is a global effort to care. And that's all. So as you listen to these presentations, if you think of something, if you think of a way to help this world, just do it, because don't listen to people that tell you not to get a bright idea. Just never give up. That's all. Thank you guys so much. Bill will be available to ask questions. I actually, at lunch, am going to go take care of the sea turtles. So that being said, he'll be here to answer any questions you have after lunch.
We do have time for 1 or 2 questions.
Yep. I'll let him.
Go ahead.
She mentioned, what's your name again?
Brandi, yep.
Brandi. You mentioned about you don't know any billionaire. And Louis Bacon is one of those billionaires who is well known for his long-standing fondness of turtles. And you can present your research project for them. There's no harm in trying.
Absolutely.
I think the biggest challenge is all those people get bombarded constantly. So it's hard to get through, to actually reach somebody. We've tried a couple different people over the years, and honestly, the way we survive is really with just donations from people like you. That's really what's supporting us, is people like you guys that actually care.
We've done the long shots and the ones that are passionate. We've done the corporations right here in New Jersey and so on and so forth. Believe me, we're working on it. you're looking at the grant writer, you're looking at the fundraising committee. So yes, our time is limited, but we have reached out. I actually even wrote Bob Barker. Why not? He loves animals, right? He wrote back, Brandi, I don't know a thing about sea turtles. That was what he wrote on a photo of himself. So I love him. I love him for that. It's one of my favorite photos. So, but we haven't given up on that either, obviously. It'd be great to have full-time staff. We have amazing volunteers. Jackie's in the audience today, but amazing volunteers that help us out. But yeah, that's of course always the need.
Anybody else?
How many different species of sea turtles have you had in your hospital?
We've had 3. We get 4 in our area. So we get the loggerheads, greens, Kemp's Ridleys, and the leatherbacks off of New Jersey. We have not had a leatherback. Let's knock wood. There's only been a few ever admitted to rehab. They're very tough because they end up hurting themselves in rehab. So usually they're just kind of a quick pump them full of antibiotics and get them out. But actually right now we have the other 3 species in our hospital at this moment. So Kemp's Ridleys, greens, and a loggerhead.
Yeah. Hawksbills are in the North Atlantic too, but they eat the sponges and corals, so we don't see them up here. But the other species we've had.
Are there any laws enacted to protect the sea turtles?
Yes, so they're protected under the Endangered Species Act. And there's a whole, even our stuff, the permitting we had to go through, it was just outrageous. But yeah, so there are laws there to protect them. You can't just go out and pick them up, or they have very similar protections to the marine mammals, right? You can't get within certain distances and that sort of thing.
I know you mentioned you only done a handful of tags that go out on them. Is that based on the size of the turtles themselves, or just the fact of having access to tags? Or?
So for us, it's a funding issue. Again, we put all our funding into the turtles in the rehab center. That being said, we do work with a researcher in New York that gets tags, funding for tags. So if we have a turtle that qualifies, because there's another whole set of rules and regulations on size of the tag and how much drag it can put on the turtle and the size of the turtle and all these formulas. So if we have one that's eligible and he happens to have a tag, then we'll work with him to launch it. I think we've done 6 satellite tags over the years, mostly loggerheads. And we've started doing a couple acoustic tags, but we haven't gotten any data back from those yet. The acoustic tags data takes a lot longer to get back. So we've launched a couple of those as well. And then every turtle we do release does get a pit tag, which is, like a home again in your cat or your dog, so that if they come up somewhere else, they get scanned and we'll get a report.
Is there any turtles that can't be released? Where do they go?
There are, and if they can't be released, they would go to like an aquarium or a zoo or something. Now, so far, all of our turtles that have made have been ready for release, but that being said, we have one now that probably we're going to make a determination that he's non-releasable, and that's due to a jaw injury. He had a necrotic section of bone in his jaw, and when it healed, he actually has an overbite. And so we're afraid he's not going to be able to feed properly on tough algae and seagrasses in the wild. So he's probably going to be our first non-releasable. But we already have a home lined up for him.
Yes.
So.
And that's up to Dr. Pollock. We're still seeing what we can do with him. So not quite there to know yet. But we do have a permit for a captive as well if that ever happens. So.